Welcome to Ion Franchising, where you will learn the A to Z's of franchise. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising. I think you know me by now, Lance Graulich. I'm your host. So we all have hopes, we all have dreams, we all have wishes. It all starts hopefully at a young age, and we're thinking, what am I going to be when I grow up? What am I going to do? I want to be famous. Well, maybe I want to be an astronaut. I don't know. Maybe I want to be a firefighter, lawyer. So today I mentioned famous. Well, she is famous. She is franchise famous. She is the author of an amazing book called Franchise Fame. My friend, Dani Peleva. Did I say it right?
Yeah, I think you got it.
Peleva. I always screw it up. Peleva, that's it. Uh-oh, Dani, wait, we just froze. What happened here? Hold on one second. I'm going to clap so the guys know where to edit it. Hold on. So welcome to the show, my friend, Dani Peleva. Welcome, Dani.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
Dani, first question, obvious question. How did this all happen? How did Dani get into franchising? What did you want to be when you grew up?
So I don't think anyone wakes up one day and says, my dream is to be a franchisor, right? So I think naturally I was always interested in business and marketing. And one of my first employment was I was hired by this huge company that was providing services in the home sector and domestic services sector, anything from gardening, handyman, cleaning services. And because they had so many challenges with their contractors, with maintaining the level of quality, and we know all the challenges of running a big business and wanting to scale it up. There's so many. They decided to take down the route of franchising. I was lucky enough to be there and to witness them franchising out. I headed the marketing and branding department. So I was there with it throughout the whole process and the transition. I saw the benefit of franchising, and I stayed with them for about 6 years. And that was my first touch with franchising. I had no idea what that was before.
And where were you? Where did you grow up?
So I'm originally Bulgarian, but I moved to the UK to study and do a master's degree. And this was in London, UK, with my first employment. And that helped me naturally save some money for tuition and do a master's degree, which was in project management. That added more to my resume and skill set, but tuition fees can be quite high in the UK, very much like in the US. So I was thinking about a way to pay off my tuition fee and run something on the side while studying and doing my master's degree. So this is why I decided to buy a franchise myself. So I bought a franchise.
So wait, I have to ask you. So you had experience. You jumped in or fell into franchising. You decided there's something here. This is pretty good. So tell me, why franchising?
Well, I thought it's a great model because you learn from someone that's already tested and trialed it. It's essentially a business in a box, as we say. And it worked for me at that moment of my career and my life. I knew that this was a great opportunity. I couldn't just run with my own savings while studying, and I needed to support myself somehow. And I started with one man and a van on the road. And 3 years later, after I graduated and did my master's degree and paid it all in full, I had 12 guys on the road with 12 vans. So it was incredibly successful, and it did its purpose.
How did you decide what franchise was right for you?
Well, because I was already heading the marketing department of my employer, it made a lot of sense because I knew the services, I knew the products, I knew the demand, I knew what was sought after, and
you were comfortable.
I was very comfortable, yes, indeed. And but Lance, it didn't make sense because I was always passionate for marketing. It didn't make sense to stay comfortable with the franchise that I owned. I was essentially a franchisee. So when I graduated, I sold my franchise business. And that is how the idea about the franchise agency, the marketing agency, was born, because I always had a passion for marketing. And by that time, I had seen all the challenges and both sides of the coin, franchisor and Z side. So I thought, well, hang on a minute. There's a gap in the market. I know how to do marketing for both sides. And that's how I founded Franchise Fame back in 2014.
Yeah, I love it. So talk a little bit about marketing and you. Like, how did you get into marketing in the first place?
So that actually dates back to 6-year-old Dani, and that's a very personal.
Oh, now we're getting into it. We're getting.
We are.
Deep. Okay, I like it. Hold.
Right. So that's actually a very interesting story, and that this dates back to 6-year-old Dani, or the little me. Back in the days, growing up in Bulgaria, in the family of 2 teachers, and it was challenging times. My parents were not the wealthiest, and they had to work 2 jobs to make ends meet for me and my sister. I have a younger sister. And I remember those days because my parents would come back at like 10 o'clock at night, really tired because they had like a second shift. I would look after my sister, do the chores, clean, cook in the house, and just kind of grow up. For a 6-year-old child, that wasn't, what we were supposed to do. I had to like play games and all that. But then I knew my parents were doing this for the best of us and for our fortune. So they did try to start their own business. Essentially, it was a luxury furniture manufacturing company, and they had a great product and they worked really hard. The problem was that they didn't necessarily know how to take it to market. So they didn't have the marketing strategy, they didn't have the sales support, they just had this great product and a lot of ambition. And unfortunately, it didn't fly off. It went on for about 2 years, and then they had to shut down the company. Me thinking now and reflecting about that experience is, I think if they had that go-to-market knowledge and that support system that franchising provides to people, and they have this, business acumen and support system in place in marketing and sales and that training, they would have been successful. Unfortunately, they didn't have that in place. So it's almost like little Dani has now grown up and is helping other businesses, very much like her parents' business that tried, people who try to earn a decent living and be successful and be their own bosses, like my parents did, but did not succeed. So I think that's where my passion about franchise marketing lies.
Yeah, and obviously that's what I love about franchising in general, is that somebody's got your back. Somebody is telling you the truth that you need to work on marketing, you need to build your sales, you need to stop hemorrhaging money, et cetera. So this is probably a perfect segue hearing that. Tell me about the book, because it's all about your experiences, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it made a lot of sense after being in franchising for 13, 14 years and working with franchises from all over the world, just to summarize that knowledge. And I did a lot of, again, digging and reflecting upon past experiences. And even this is how I remember that memory of little Dani at 6 years old, trying to help her parents in any way possible. You do learn a lot about yourself when you write a book, but predominantly from experiences and all the clients over the years that I met and spoke to, I managed to see a pattern. And that pattern was a few problems and challenges most of the franchisors were experiencing throughout their franchising journey. And wherever they were based, whatever industry in, they seem to have those common problems that they faced. And I thought, wait a minute, if they all have like a similar challenge or similar problems, how do I address those pain points? And how do I provide a solution, a system that works every single time when implemented correctly? So this is how I came up with the 5 F's of franchise marketing model. And that model, so far, it's worked its magic and is 100% effective if implemented correctly. And that is what the book is about.
If implemented correctly. We don't have enough time to go through what goes wrong when you don't pay attention to some of these F's. But yeah, so that's fantastic. And what do you do in order to work with franchise brands today? Are you getting hired? You know, your agency, are you working with franchisors only? Do you have franchisees that hire you? How does that work?
It's an interesting 50-50 mix. We work with franchisors, but also some franchisees approach us, and we don't want to say no to anyone in franchising. So we would help with franchisors. We will help franchisors with local marketing for the network, but also with franchise recruitment and them expanding into new territories and markets. But when a Z comes around and says, well, I need extra support, or what I'm getting from the head office is not enough, or my franchisor is encouraging me to work with someone locally, we would always, take that contract on board and implement local marketing strategies to help that franchisee succeed. Organically, this usually, because networks are networks, the franchisee is happy with our work, then they recommend us to another Z and another one. So we eventually end up speaking to the franchisor in the head office in the end, but it all happens organically.
Got it. So for those listening that aren't sure of our lingo, franchisors, the parent company, corporate, if you will, we commonly refer to them as ZORs. The franchisee is commonly referred to as a Z. So for those of you playing along at home. So Dani, should we do a little reveal, a little tease on what those 5 F's are?
Yeah, of course. So the 5 F's of franchising, franchise marketing is, as I said, a model that's quite holistic. It encompasses all the parties that are involved in the franchise ecosystem. And we know, franchising is all about people. So I've made sure that I've included all the parties, because one of my wise mentors once said, you are in partnership with everyone who touches the business. So Absolutely. Your suppliers, your franchisor, your franchisees, fellow franchisees, your network, you are in partnership with all of them. So that's why the model encompasses all the parties. So essentially, the 5 F's of franchise marketing includes the franchise network, or all the franchisees, a focused team, that is the head office team, a fantastic reputation, because what is the business without its reputation? More so in franchising, when perfect reputation is on the line, and if a franchisee does not care or look after their reputation, it might tarnish the whole brand. A full funnel of leads is always essential, both for franchisors and franchisees, and that is the 4th F. And the last one is finding the right fit. Yes. Number 5, finding the right fit in terms of the next partner for franchisors, but also for franchisees, finding the right fit as a client, because your services and products are tailored for a specific niche of clients, rather than just shooting without a direction.
Yeah, I read the book, of course, and it really hit me. I've been in franchising a long time, but I'm a very visual person, and I never saw anybody put all of these pieces together on, in a guide, if you will. And you did an awesome job, and obviously a lot of people can benefit, whether you're looking to get into a franchise or you're already an experienced franchisor. It should be a book that franchisees should be mandated to read, because like anything, if you want to get in shape, if you're not eating right, it's not as effective. And in franchising, if you're missing one of these F's, there's probably a problem, right? Fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the kind words. I'm glad that
No, you're welcome. There it is. There's the book.
There
if you're watching on YouTube or anywhere else at the moment with video. But the bottom line is, I guess it's fair to say, I always say it as a franchise broker. People ask me, Lance, what's a great brand for me? Well, if a doctor, unless they examine you, prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. So I guess you get in there with a brand or with a franchisee, and I'm sure you're looking at these 5 F's to see how are you really, do you grade them? What are you looking at? I mean, how does that go?
So yeah, you're absolutely right. So the process is first establish what their needs are, what their main challenges are. And usually it comes down to 3 pain points. Again, I've seen the pattern over the years. It's usually either a problem of not having any time, and this is a very common problem where franchisors are trying to juggle with too many balls and work very hard and extra hours and weekends, and they don't have enough time for their families and personal lives, but at the same time feel that they're not making any progress, and that results in them being frustrated and feeling unaccomplished. So that's a very common pain point. And again, the model answers that. The other common pain point is not knowing where to start in terms of lead generation, and it's almost like you need a crystal ball to generate some leads, and it's some sort of a spell, and you're not sure how to start. And another pain point is that when someone franchises out, it's exhausting, right? The process might take legally a few months to like a year, writing the franchise manual, the operations manual, and all that. So franchisors have this unrealistic expectations very often, where they think that there's going to be a huge queue of people waiting to sign up and invest in their franchise, and are disappointed when they see that reality is very different. So they either come into contact with me because they need help with the funnel, or because their franchise is not recognizable and not famous enough. And this is why we call ourselves Franchise Fame, because we help you reach that famous point of the business.
I was just going to ask you that about the name.
Yeah, and funnily enough, after I published the book, and this was completely beyond my bravest expectations, it became an Amazon bestseller a few days after publishing. And that happened exactly a year ago in May 2022. And to date, I have people contacting me over Facebook or LinkedIn saying, I read your book and I have a question, or it changed the way I think about franchising or my business, or and they do reach out to start a conversation, which very often results in us partnering or working together.
So Dani, I have to ask a question. So the most common thing that people are, let's say, their eyes are open to because of the book, what's one thing that seems to be commonplace that people have contacted you about to say, you really opened my eyes to this?
Franchise network and fantastic reputation. These are the 2 Fs that where franchisors predominantly feel surprised about, because they thought they know it all, but then the tips and the advice and the implementation and the downloadable materials that come along with the book that you can download for free, those I've heard are extremely helpful for franchisees. At least that's franchisors, that's the feedback. And more specifically, it's all about first safeguarding your reputation as a franchisor. It's almost like you need to be constantly implementing practices and be on the lookout on how your franchisees are doing, what sort of reviews and reputation they're generating for your brand, because you're safeguarding the brand in this way. And also, how do you encourage your franchisees to understand the value of good reputation, maintain that, safeguard it, and encourage their end clients to leave positive reviews on the internet about that? So I've given some practical advice and tips on how to implement that strategy so that franchisees benefit from 5-star reviews, and in this way the franchisor and the whole overall brand is elevated and becomes more popular. More so nowadays, Google has implemented reviews and reputation in their SEO algorithm. So the more positive reviews a business has on Google Business or in their profiles, the higher it ranks in Google searches. So it has a direct correlation with the performance of your business in marketing and searches, where
Love it.
people didn't know that before.
Yeah. No, another incentive to have a great reputation. And we all know bad news travels a lot faster than good news. So one bad review is going to probably chase away quite a few future customers, right?
Yeah, statistics say that one negative review can cost you up to 22 missed customers.
Well, and
You
I read that in the book. So how do you like that?
Thanks.
So everybody that is looking at business opportunities right now that's listening to this episode is thinking, well, I want to know from Dani, how do I know? I'm looking at all these different franchise opportunities. How do I know what's right for me? And what do I look for? How can this be used to help in my assessment of a great franchise? So what are those tips besides the 5 F's within that? How do you decipher a good franchise?
Well, I would always say it doesn't really matter what your experience used to be if you're passionate about business. You don't have to have gardening experience to buy a gardening franchise, as long as you've got a drive and for business and a business acumen. However, there are a few things that you should be very careful about and do a little bit of due diligence before you even interact with a brand and start exploring the opportunity of investing in their franchise. And some of these key things are ask about training, of course, what sort of training that they provide and the ongoing training, what sort of support system from the head office is provided as well. Are there any regular checks or regular visits from a qualified professional? How long for? How often? Is it the first year only? What sort of leverage and tools and levers does this business have when they see that if you are struggling the first few months? What can they do to support you and turn things around for you? What is their marketing strategy, and is there a specific launch marketing included in the plan for you if you bought a franchise? And the first few months, do they guarantee any sort of revenue or contracts right away, or do they expect you to start selling yourself and start thinking about local marketing yourself? A lot of good franchisors out there budget in for the launch and the marketing budget for the first few months of the launch of a new franchisee and support them so that they can hit the ground running. And they already have a local campaign and some Google ads and a local page and other incentives, so that when the franchisee completes the training, they start very quickly onboarding customers, and that is very important.
Yeah. No, that's all great stuff. I mean, as you're saying all of this, I mean, this is also why a lot of people come to me as a franchise broker, because for free, I'll give them the advice on these things. And these are a lot of things that I consider based on the individual. You mentioned business acumen earlier, and I always say anybody can own a franchise. The question is which one, but you do need some sort of business acumen. So how do you really determine that? So like if you're working with a franchisee, I mean, or somebody that that wants to be a franchise owner, how do you really gauge business acumen? Because like you said, you don't have to know how to cut hair for a living to own a franchise hair salon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that those skills can also be taught, and a good franchisor also supports you and includes that in their training. So I know a few franchisors that just teach you business and train you on the main business principles and the KPIs you need to make sure you stay on top of the very first few weeks, and then they teach you about the service and the product. Of course, it also helps when you're recruiting a potential franchisee or prospect to make sure that they had some certain experience, whether as employees or running a business before. That is also a great way. But again, everything can be taught, and a lot of it is common sense, believe it or not. But if
It
you're
is.
told you need to look after the sales revenue, the customer churn rates, and all these KPIs that any business would follow, and the rest is given to you by the head office. It's almost like a failure-proof recipe, and those are the good franchise opportunities that are out there.
Yeah.
Just to return to your previous question, I would always advise people who are interested in buying a franchise to also try and look to speak with existing franchisees, because existing franchisees are not going to cover it all up and give you the pretty picture. They will tell you what exactly works with that model and what doesn't.
Yes.
And some franchisors also organize prospective days or open days where you can go on the spot and see the operations of the franchise.
Yes.
If it's a restaurant, you can go, behind the scenes and see what the staff does and all the operations and all that. So these are great opportunities to get introduced to the business without even spending a penny or a cent.
Love it. I love it. Now, future of franchising. So we took a big leap, the world of franchising did, when technology came about. A lot of things we're discussing, marketing and reputation management. So that was wonderful. That really helped a lot of things. And so where do you see the future going? I mean, franchising somehow still continues to be stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah, and we see growth year on year, especially in the US market. On the US market, there's stable growth even during the recession and the pandemic of the last few years. We saw that franchising still continued to grow, and that is fascinating because most people started thinking about whether they're actually doing what they love, and a lot of them realized that their 9-to-5 job simply doesn't make them happy. And those turbulent times we lived in the last few years actually provoked that thought and that thinking, and people decided to actually, well, now is the time, now or never. I want to quit my job because I'm not happy. I want to pursue that dream of mine. How do you pursue a dream of yours, or how do you start your own business or become your own boss? There's a lot less risk if you do that through franchising. And I believe this is why franchising is recession proof, pandemic proof, and even with the advancement of technology, and we see ChatGPT now and all the AI technology, this comes to actually improve the way we do business, not as a threat. I see franchising becoming even more popular because more and more people, especially the Gen Zers, as we call them, they don't want to be whitewashed or brainwashed. They want to do their own thing. And there are emerging franchise brands out there that speak directly to the younger generation with sustainable models and carbon-free and neutral franchises and so on. So I see a lot more people getting involved, a lot younger people too. And yeah, the franchising growing because it's a great way to promote economic growth and equal opportunities for everyone in business.
I love it. Great stuff, Dani. So a lot of great stuff throughout this interview. Final thoughts, final words of wisdom from Miss Dani today to anybody. I mean, look, we have franchisors that listen to this show, we have franchisees, and we have people looking just at opportunities, and they don't know, and they stumble upon us and listen and get curious. And so final thoughts, final words of wisdom for all of them.
Well,
pressure. I'll put the pressure on.
Franchising is a great business model. I can single-handedly say I've experienced it, franchisor, franchisee side. Now I work with franchisors from all over the world, and I think it's a great way to have that dream of yours finally come to fruition, and make yourself happy, have more more balance between work and personal life, spend more time with your family. If you're already in franchising, you know this, but there are certain challenges you might, face, whether you're a franchisor or a franchisee. But there are agencies or professionals out there that have seen it all and can help you. So there's loads of groups for free advice on Facebook or LinkedIn. There's books as well. And I'm always happy if someone reaches out to just have a free conversation with them. Lance, I'm sure you are too. So don't be afraid to ask for help. That is my advice. Don't be afraid to seek and ask for help. There's a lot of people that have experienced it, have gone through this, and will happily speak to you for free and give you some wisdom and advice. So yeah, just reach out.
Love it, love it, love it. And join our franchise community. Dani, thank you so much for being here. This was awesome, and look forward to talking again soon. Thank you for having me, Lance. It was a pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much for listening today. Please like, follow, and subscribe. This is Lance Graulich. Until next time.